Hello, Madcappers. Welcome back. Today we are going to learn how to work with faux fur to create a fabulous faux fur hat that is so simple to make, so easy to sew. Yes, this is so easy to make, especially if you pick the right fur that is just the right plushness and just the right length, and well, you should try to shop for the fur in person. I have a pile of fur and pieces left over from previous seasons, but unfortunately, the length nap is not in the right direction to go all around my head. So for my second sample, I'm going to show you how to piece together and you will never notice the seam. Some fur is plush like this one, and it's hard to tell which direction the fur wants to lie unless you turn it over and look at the knit backing. But most fur you can tell which way the fur wants to go, especially if you look at the edge. Most have a definite nap, so we want to cut our fur piece so the nap is going around our head. When we join up the back seam, it'll look like it is a continuous piece, and that's how we know we did this right. And when you're cutting fur, just take small clips with your scissors and only cut through the knit backing. And take your time doing it. The end results are worth it. So when you're shopping for fur, you'll notice that it comes in all sorts of lengths, degrees of plushness, and the price will usually reflect that. I've found great pieces of fur in the ends bin at my local fabric store, but generally fur that you want for a hat is a bit on the pricey side. So my samples are going to be one that's long, about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters in strand length, and one that has shorter strands that's about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters at the longest point. Now my pattern piece is about 24.25 inches in length, which is going to go around my head, and that's almost 2 inches larger than my head circumference. And the piece is about 5.25 inches deep, so that works out to be 61.5 centimeters by 13.5 centimeters. And I've used a chalk pencil to trace my pattern onto the back of the fur in line with the selvage edge, but far enough away from the edge not to have any of those machine marks. And I'll use my chalk to draw a line straight down the middle to mark the center front, which I'll use to line up with my fleece pieces, which will have a cut notch for the center front. And we're going to cut our fleece in the stretchy direction, and they are about 1/2 inch or 12.5 millimeters longer than my average head circumference of 22.5 inches or 57.5 centimeters. So the piece that will be inside or the lining is about 4 inches or 10 centimeters deep, and the piece that will be on the outside at the top is about 2 inches deep or 5 centimeters deep. And I'm just doing a top stitching now. That's how I like to finish my seams if I can on my hats. So I've sewn the back seam and I just sew the raw edge down on either side of the seam to create a nice top stitch and a flat seam. Nice and perfect. I also cut some center notches on both of those pieces as well. So now it's time to prepare the fur. And the key to sewing with the faux fur for making hats is to keep the fur ends from getting caught in our seams. So that's why I'm going around the entire perimeter of this piece and I'm pushing the ends inward and sewing over top so that they're trapped pointing towards the right side and the inside of this fur panel. And I'll go and do it on all 4 sides. And I'm using a narrow seam about 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters. And then once I finish this, it also makes it easy to sew the back seams together. I'll still keep pushing fur out of the way though, and towards the inside or the right side of the piece when I start attaching the fleece to this piece, as well as sewing the back seam. And you'll see how nice this looks. You won't even notice the seam if you keep the fur out of your sewing. So I'm pinning the right sides together and I'm pushing the fur out of the way, back towards the inside. And I'll use my regular size seam width for this. but I won't do any top stitching because I want this fur to just cover the seam on the right side. When you're sewing with faux fur, it's really important to move the fur out of the way so your ends don't get caught in a seam and disappear into the void, so you don't even see that seam now. Now I will sew my back seam of the fur piece to the back seam of one of my fleece pieces. And it doesn't really matter what order you do this in. One piece of fleece is going to get sewn to each side of this fur. And when you're sewing the fur to the fleece, work with the fur on the top so that you can continue to push the fur inside the seam. It's going to want to keep popping up. That pesky fur does that. And you can see that I'm doing that now. So the longer piece is going to go on one side of the fur, and now we will do the shorter, but we'll just fluff up that seam and pull out any stragglers, and it's looking good. And when you finish a section, just check to make sure that there isn't any fur caught in the seam. So now we're just going to repeat, and we're sewing the smaller piece of fleece, which will be the top on the outside of our hat. And we're sewing to the fur. We matched up the center notch and the back seam. And now we're going to pull our two raw edges of fleece together, and we folded our piece in two. And now we have a double layer hat with a lovely furry cuff. And I'm just going to pin it together, and then I'm going to stay stitch, or I'm going to sew close to the edge to join those two pieces of fleece and close up the top. And this step is very helpful too. It helps to prevent the fleece from stretching out of shape, especially when you're trying to sew the top on, which we're going to do next. Now, the top that we're going to use is the same as the top we've used in our past two videos, and the template is available as a free download on our website, and I'll put the link in the description. It has a dart, which gives the top a rounded shape when you sew up the dart. The rounded shape matches the rounded shape of our heads. So we'll fold our top in half. We're going to pin. And we're going to sew our dart. And now we're going to top stitch our dart flat. So we're going to make that raw edge flat on the wrong side. So we're going to sew up the dart to the center, pivot, and come back down on the other side of that seam. All right, so now I'm going to match my dart seam on the right side with the back seam of my hat. On the right side, I'll pin in place, and then I'll match the two center notches that I cut, the one in the fleece band and the one in the top of the hat. And just continue to ease in the top all the way around and pin if you need to. It should fit perfectly, or almost perfectly. If your pieces are really out of whack, then stop at this point and try to figure out which one is too big or too small before you pin the top on. And you know, it's always a good idea too to try on that hat body before you even start pinning the top. And I forgot to mention that. So once I have that top in place, I'm going to use my normal seam allowance of 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter, and I'm sewing the pieces together. And to finish up with the sewing, I'm going to do a top stitch all the way around the top. Literally a top stitch. So what I do is I'm moving around the top right to the right of that top seam, and I'm using my presser foot to guide me. And the presser foot's sort of resting up on the left-hand side against that seam. And I'll just flatten out the fabric as I go along, and I should have a perfect top stitch. And I find the more that I do this, the more I feel like that top seam really wants to help me do this. So now I have turned my hat inside out, and you can trim with scissors any extra, or you can finish with a serge. And I'm just going to try it on my hat block to see how it fits, and voila, it looks like a perfect fit to me. And now for the long fur hat. So I had to piece this together to create a band with the nap of the fur going in the proper direction, which is around my head and not up and down. So I'm piecing 3 pieces together, and I will trim away anything extra once I finish preparing the fur. So I'm just pushing the fur that wants to pop out of my back seam inside, and I'm gonna sew those 2 knit backings together, and I'm pinning down those long ends just to help me. So you'll notice the bottom piece of fur, the fur is moving away from the edge of the seam and it's lying flat, whereas the top piece that I'm just trying to ease in right now, the fur wants to pop out and wants me to sew over top of it. So this is how we make this a successful seam. We push that fur back against the direction it wants to go, and we get as close as we can to those 2 pieces of knit backing being sewn together without a lot of fur in between. So the 2 pieces have blended perfectly, and I've added a third, and I'm just going to mark a center point. I can't really use my chalk pencil for this because that's a pretty wild print on the knit side of this faux fur. So I'm just doing the best I can with my Sharpie, and I'm trimming away the extra that I don't need. So make sure that you err on the side of longer rather than shorter as far as the length of the piece going around your head. It's always better to be able to cut away some of the extra if you think that you might have cut your fur piece too big once you start assembling the hat body and you have a chance to try it on. And now that I've turned this over, you can see that the fur is all going around the head in the same direction. See that? How beautiful it is. So I'm cutting out my fleece now, and I'm getting all 3 pieces of my hat body ready. And now I'm going to go and assemble them just the way that we did with the black shorter fur hat. So again, I'm going to go all the way around the perimeter, and I'm going to sew down those fur ends. And these strands are really long, so it's probably a better tutorial with this fur to see what exactly I'm doing. It's a little bit more obvious with these 2.5-inch long ends, or 6 centimeter long ends. I find this step very relaxing too. There's something satisfying about doing this and seeing the end result turn out so nice. And as you can see, when you don't trap any fur in those joining pieces too, the end result is so pretty. Just one continuous, lovely piece of fur. So we'll continue to assemble the hat the way that we did before. Sewing the fleece onto the fur, sewing the top edges, putting the top together, sewing up the dart. attaching the top to the body. It's all the same process. The difference with this hat is the fur is quite a bit longer, and it's going to make for a bit of a dramatic difference. So you can have fun too when you're shopping for fur. If you want something that really makes a statement, then you want to go with the longer strands. If you're not so anxious about making the big statement, but you want the love of a furry hug around your head, then go for the shorter strands. And I'm just cleaning up my seam now because the longer strands are going to get caught in that top stitching. But they're just caught superficially. They're easy to pull out. And again, I can turn my hat inside out and I can trim away any of the extra fabric that's along that seam. Or I can use a serger to finish it so it has a more professional look, especially if I'm going to sell it. Give it a good shake, because fur loves to be shaken up. And yes, voila, look at that. It's gorgeous and I love it. It makes a statement. It certainly does. So if you like this video and you have not subscribed to the channel, please do. We'd love to have you on board. We're just getting started. Don't forget to download your top template, and we'll be back again soon with another great hat project for you. So happy sewing. Thanks for watching, and bye.